All right, welcome folks. Mil-Spec Osmega here. Hey, listen, this is going to be your SITREP. It is going to be 8/17/2022, coming to you from the great state of Texas. It is about 11 a.m. Central Time. And without further ado, let's hop on over the board. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and bell for notification as we get on into it. Sitting at around 341 mil aircraft up. This is kind of the buildup right now. That includes everything that we typically watch. You know, your heavy lifts, your recon aircraft, everything else, refuelers. So if you look at the roll-up, it's actually pretty compelling. Everything up to about the middle of the U.S., very, very active. And then we're going to break all that down. But 341 is the number. Average, about 250. So we're sitting about 100 higher than usual. And that seems to be kind of the new norm. So we may have to raise our normal number a little bit. But let's get a gander at what our watch list is looking like today. So you can see we're going to start things out. We do have another R-135 headed. Looks like it's headed out to the West Coast. We'll see if it turns around. Got a couple Army intel birds right there on the border, down there by the southern border in New Mexico. And then right there by Tijuana, notice we have a bunch of Homeland Security. That's because that place went hot over the weekend. Cartel decided to start catching cars on fire and things like that. So, and then another R-135 right there in the middle of the United States. Looks like that one is also getting airborne. A couple, let's see, that's a Sentry, E3 Sentry, AWACS. And then over in the southeast, very active. You got that one. That's the NOAA 49. We're going to take a closer look at that one, but that is actually one of our weather modification birds. And then we get down here, that N20 or that H25B. That's actually going to be N312FU. That's one we're tracking as well. Flagging as a commercial bird, but that's also known as the Maxwell bird. And then, of course, some more Department of Energy stuff going on northeast. Now we're going to look. The sniffer is out today, so we'll take a look at that one as well and see where he's headed. But that is another additional Department of Energy bird that's up right now. And then of course we got that B703 bugging out of Warner Robins. That's a J-Star. And then there's your German Air Force mil intel balloons. Looks like we got a little NATO AWACS up over Belgium and Germany, that general region. And then that Yanko 3, that's another one of those peacock birds. Army intelligence outrunning some routes up there near Latvia. And nothing else. Let me back up a little bit. Now this one's interesting. I think this is a drone just because it's chilling out at like 75 knots, which is pretty slow even for a Cessna. That's really, really slow. You can see him running routes back and forth. Another drone there, Spook 27. So then it gets us over to our heavy list, okay? Now this, looking at C-17, C-130s, we're going to look closer at that in just a second. I'll show you what we're really looking at because I know a lot of folks are like, what's a C-17? What's a C-130? So we'll look at those aircraft here. But you can see East Coast centric as always. It looks like we got a little bit of a spread occurring out to the west. And then we get over to Europe, kind of quiet. Matter of fact, I haven't seen it this quiet in Europe since before the invasion into Ukraine. So got some A400s. Those are that prop job kind of different looking aircraft, but that's going to be German Air Force. Looks like they were rolling down south a little bit. A couple more German Air Force and Belgium Air Force coming out of the northern region of Europe. I think maybe there was an exercise or something going on because we did see some TFRs up there too. And then over Israel, a little active for this time of day. And then we got one little C-17 popping way back in the back. Now, what is a C-17? Let's just take a quick look at this. This is what I'm talking about when I say C-17. You probably saw them bailing out of Afghanistan when that was going on. Now, this is it's kind of the replacement for a C-141, but it's a heavy lift. Thing's super fat. And it has a huge range, actually. It's called a Globemaster. But that's one, when I start talking about the heavies, this is one of the aircraft we're looking at, okay? This is kind of the primary long-range heavy mover. And then the other one's going to be the C-130, right? Notice it's got 4 turboprops. It's a little slower. Doesn't have quite the range, but there's a bunch of different C-130s that we talk about when we're getting into that, okay? Now, we talk about air refuelers. We're going to look at those real fast too, so I can show you what the skies are looking like right now relative to that, and then I'm going to show you the aircraft. But again, C-130, that's a pretty big troop carrier. It's also carries a lot of assets like equipment and things like that, but it's a workhorse just like the C-17, okay? All right, so when I say heavy lifts, that's what I mean. C-130s, C-17s for the most part. You get a couple C-5s in there. Won't even bother with those. There's only onesie, twosies. C-17 kind of replaced most of that, okay? Now we look at the air refuelers. These are the planes that are flying around giving our military gas while they're in the air, topping them off. Now there's a lot of training goes on with that because pilots need to perfect that skill. So you do get quite a few up from that standpoint, but there are a lot of refuelers over the U.S. right now. You even got this one down by Puerto Rico. Probably have some fighters down there that need a little service. Down off of South Florida, as always, up in the Northeast, as you can see. And we get over to Europe, and it's a lot quieter, but we'll see what we got. We do have this one. Notice that bad dude is running right up to Belarus and Ukraine border. That means we've got fighters right really pushing the envelope right along that general area, and then over Germany, and then up into the Baltics. So and then down into the south side also. So what do these air refuelers look like? Let's talk about that for a second. So this one that you see is actually going to be a KC-135. It's an air refuel, but it's also a multitask. Notice it's got that, if you look up by the nose, you'll see kind of a gray patch. That is a cargo door, okay? So, this aircraft actually is a multi-purpose, right? It can be used for cargo. Typically, when it's being used for cargo, it flies under the Reach call sign and not the air refueling K-35R, okay? Just typically. So it's just kind of a data point for you. Notice those big fat engines. Those have been modified. Those are turbofans that have been put on, getting away from the old engines that were on there. A lot of noise, not super efficient. These things are a lot more efficient. Now, the jet that's sitting over right over my head right here, that's an F-15. They don't fly them very often. They're not as frequent as like an F-16 or an F-18, right? They're very dated, and there are, although Air National Guard and a couple folks, especially when you get over to Europe, still fly these things. But it's a good aircraft, but it's just really old. Okay, all right. Now, let's get back over here to our main screen. We'll look at some other stuff here in a minute. We're going to talk Q4 here in just a second. So let's break away from what we're looking at relative to the roll-up. Like I said, very active, very busy today for middle of the week, right? All right, now we'll punch out a sky glass. Let's get over here. This is going to be your Forte 10, okay? This is over in Flight Radar 24, and just to show you again, just beating down that Black Sea. If you know the range on this thing, it is looking at everything probably all the way up in here. This is Crimea. This is Russia-controlled area. And then this down here is Turkey. Okay, there's Ankara, just kind of a point of reference, in Istanbul. Now, over the Black Sea, that thing probably has LiDAR. It's probably got all kinds of different things that can look down into the water. And so it could be looking for subs, could be looking at boats, or ships, as you Navy guys like to call them. But if you're wanting to know what a Q4 is, I keep mentioning it. It's Northrop Grumman manufactured RQ-4 Global Hawk. This is what it looks like. It's a spectacular aircraft. It's unmanned. It's a drone. It's got a lot of hang time. And notice it does have a jet engine on it versus a prop. Now, there is one out there that's got a little prop deal. It's got some serious hang time. Not as fast, but this thing can fly around in that general region for about 18 hours. And in that 18 hours, it can cover up to, I think, 40,000 square acres. It's insane. The technology on that thing is unbelievable. Now, notice, too, when we get back over to our screen, just to show you how far that thing has flown. So there's some dude sitting in a trailer somewhere that's flying this thing. He may or may not even be down here near Malta and Catania, but that is where it takes off, and then it bugs out and heads across. That's a pretty long flight. That's not a real fast one. That's probably 3 hours worth of flight time right there. And so this guy may be flying, do a shift change, bumps out, heads over to McDonald's, Taco Bell, comes back, and does some more. But it's absolutely incredible aircraft, no doubt about it. but it is pushing the envelope because this right along that edge, right where the call sign is a no-fly zone, right? So it really, if he were to go across that no-fly zone and get too close to Crimea, 100% they'd pop that bad dude right out of the air. Notice the altitude on it too, 53,000 feet. That's a little higher than commercial traffic. Commercial usually doesn't punch above 40. They're usually in that 30, 36 range. But anyway, so it's a little bit above everything else. Not as high as your mil intel balloons that are sitting up there 24/7. But again, it's just another one in the quiver of the things that they use to watch us, okay? All right, now let's go over to the misery map. If you're traveling today, just a heads up, looks like Atlanta's the one that's going to be pushing the envelope for everybody. We're already at 207 delays this morning, 7 cancellations. As you can see, that weather's starting to push into the region there in the big ATL. Looks like Dallas is going to get a little bit of effect from it. And then, of course, Chicago, as always, followed by JFK, LAX, etc. DFW is down like 7th on the list or so, but I'm sure it'll go up as weather comes in. So anyway, just pointing that out there. We like to watch what's going on relative to the commercial side of the house as well, okay? All right, let's talk weather for a second. Now, this one's kind of a trip. I'm going to bounce over to my radar real fast. I was watching this dude, Ryan Hall, y'all. He's got a YouTube channel, and he is a meteorologist. The dude is, one, he's funny, but two, he's just really, really good at what he does. And so I was watching his YouTube channel, just checking out what he had to say, and this is what is really mind-blowing. Now, you want to talk about weather modification and just the fact that, you start messing with the weather, it's like letting the genie out of the bottle. Very hard to get it back in, but they are continuing all around the world to just sit here and jockey with stuff. And so we've got what looks to be forming a nor'easter. Yeah, you heard me right. A nor'easter headed out here into the northeast, according to the latest model. Now, that is very unusual because nor'easters usually occur between October and April. They're usually a big snow provider, but this is August. So to see a nor'easter in August is unheard of. So very, very unusual, but that is what we got going on up here. Of course, you get in while we're sitting here, you may as well just talk about this. That's going to be Flashbang TFR. Looks like he is in that general region. Don't know what this little one is over Jersey. We can take a look at Atlantic City. That's air show. All right, and then you got this little tiny yellow one inside here. Again, air show. But these, in general, are going to be Flashbang, okay? All right, let me back up a little bit. Now, these little round ones you see down here, that's space operations. Look like we got some rockets coming back. All right. So, another, again, looks like Texas getting ready to get a lot of rain. So those who have been praying for rain into Texas, thank you very much for that. Because looks like we've got chances for today, and then next week is supposed to be just a washout, which is fantastic. So, all right, this is going to be your only one up right now. This is Airborne National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Looks like they are headed out over, looks like Patrick Air Force Base, touch and goes. So, but let's get over here to this one, because this is the one I was actually watching. It's the same aircraft, it looks like, potentially, but NOAA A49, just to show you, this thing was running routes up here in the corner in the panhandle, and then down here into this general area, running across the storms here. What do you think they're doing? Yeah, that's what I thought too. Probably seeding. Just can't tell with these guys, but notice the deviations in altitude. Looks like they did a couple touch and goes, then back up into that general region and down. And so we'll continue to watch that one. Again, like I said, we've got this other one that looks like it's just getting airborne here. That's NOAA 43, and that's actually a P3 Orion. So it is definitely a different aircraft, as you can see. Looks to be running touch and goes right there at Patrick Air Force Base. All right. So let's go over here to NASA. Speaking of weather, not seeing anything. Let me hit a refresh on it and see if anything has changed since we were watching earlier. No, not too much. Looks like everything is on ground right now. So we continue to watch these. Oh, I take that back. We do have this one up here, and that's, notice who's flying that. Dynamic Aviation. It's in 53W or whiskey. Looks like it's coming down southbound out of the region there. So no telling what it's up to. Could be doing some testing. The problem with this, looking at it, I can't tell really from an altitude perspective if it is up to anything. So You have to actually go into the flight trackers to try and get an altitude on it. Okay, let's talk flashbang for a minute. Looks like he is still, today is the 17th. It is hump day, and he is not doing anything. Thank you, Jesus. All right, so he is, looks like he's still on vacation, looks to be up there at the Biden residence in Wilmington, Delaware. And that looks like that's the main thing going on there. So they bailed out of South Carolina. That's where he's located. So let's talk a little bit about flashbang. Let's talk about this new Inflation Reduction Act. Folks, we just got punched right in the wallets. And the scariest thing about all of this is the fact that this right here, under, if we look at the summary of it, Internal Revenue Service Enforcement Funding. I will show you the money that's tied to this. So check this out. Let me see if I've got the screen up as we get into the tax aspect of it. But yeah, right here where it says revenue, just above me, right up here. Notice you got a 15% corporate minimum tax. I don't really understand that one, other than maybe there may be some companies that have benefits that drop them below that. The current corporate tax rate is 21%, so 15 is a pretty low threshold compared to 21. But it looks like they have people that are kind of getting around that, so they've put a bottom into it, so they can't go below that in terms of tax breaks. The next one is the IRS Tax Enforcement Funding. Yes, that's the 87,000 new employees they're bringing in. They are slated to get $124 billion to get that one going. And then closure of all these different loopholes. Basically what they're doing is getting blood out of a stone. They're doing everything they can to get the money that is out there. And just to kind of give you an idea, let's take a look at what this one says. This is why this is important, because what it really means when they start talking about adding 87,000 agents who have authorization with use of force. Yeah, that means they're armed, folks. Tax dodgers owe U.S. over $7 trillion. This coming from, I don't even know what to call her. We got to come up with a nickname for this lady. But nonetheless, yeah, this is what's going on here, folks. They are going to be coming after us lock, stock, and barrel. Literally, no pun intended. $7 trillion is a ton of money. Evidently, there's people dodging taxes. I know it's not me, so I'm not overly concerned about that, because they are taxing me just short of death. All right. So, but there's that one. And let's see. Let's get on down as we talk. We'll talk a little bit more about this stuff, but you can see that is the crux of it all. They are coming after us and our money. All right. That's how you avoid a recession. Also, taxes are going up. They don't tell you that part of it. So, yeah. It's not good. All right, let's get over to the NOTAM, see what's going on. Now, notice there's a lot of activity going on here across the United States. We've got stuff all the way up here in the Northeast. 99% of what you're looking at on the screen right here is going to be some type of a military operation or training exercise going on. Now, we've got this one that is a permanent, looks to be permanent, right over dead center of the United States. This is the region we were actually watching them set up all the comm structure a couple months ago. But they continue to leave this one in play. Also notice this is kind of the general area where we keep getting the sea of aircraft, air refuelers launched out of, between Oklahoma and this general area. So it looks like we may have a little bit of a hub in practicing. I mean, that's a dead center of the United States. Kind of an interesting deal. This one continues to stay out there. We've got this box out over off the coast of San Francisco. Now, remember, we were just looking at that R-135 up here running routes. Now, the one that was out there was actually the nuke sniffer, which I thought was interesting. And then we've got the other one that launched that was headed out this general direction. Don't know if it'll get out over the water, but we'll see what happens later on. And then you can see a lot of little activity going on down here in Mexico. And if we back up and we kind of segue over here to Taiwan, you can see there's still a lot of boxes, active boxes around here. Those are the Chinese running a lot of exercises off the coast of Taiwan. And then these little zebra lines, as I would call them, most of those are unmanned air vehicles. Okay, so those are drones that are up. So Taiwan's got a lot of drones. Now, why is this Taiwan thing so critical to us? Just take a quick look. If we look at the chips, look at who manufactures most of the chips that we use, all right, besides the company names off to the left. But look at it by country directly up here over my head. you're going to notice you got Taiwan sprinkled in there with China. Between the two of them, those are the major chip manufacturers. That's why our automotive industry right now is in the toilet, because China shut down and we don't have the chips to make our cars, and that's why you're waiting 60 months to get a new ride. Okay. Notice Israel makes chips as well. I'm sure they could probably do it for us, but we don't want to be in bed with Israel. Not with this administration, even though we probably should be. All right, because we know we save Israel for last, and even Jesus does. So, all right, let's get back over to our main page. Again, this is the Taiwan thing going on. Now, if we get into the news in Taiwan, as you can see, let me button that little map up. You can see all the activity. This purple stuff you're seeing, that's China messing around right off the coast. Notice they keep pushing these fighters in and out of the region. Again, this is just a daily occurrence over there. That was August 11th, just a week ago, but they continue to do so. And then, of course, Taiwan in the blue keeps doing alerts and things like that. It's going to be very interesting to see. Now, remember, China has already notified the UN with their intent to go after Taiwan. They've already told them, hey, we're getting ready. That was the UN Security Council. That happened last week. And so, again, this is probably going to go hot a lot sooner than we probably expected it to. If China takes over Taiwan, like I said, that means that from a chip perspective, notice these Taiwans would change to China. That begins all of a sudden you've got about 80% of all your superconductor chips coming out of China. That's a really, really, really bad for us as well as the rest of the world, because those chips go into all kinds of stuff. And I mean everything: aerospace and defense, automobiles, laptop computers, just you name it, phones. It is pretty much the lion's share. So if they were to take Taiwan, that's why it's so critical, and put the squeeze on everybody with the superconductor chips, your automotive industry would in essence shut down. I mean, you wouldn't get any more chips, or at least if you did, it would be very limited. Okay. All right, let's go over to the marine traffic. One thing I'm going to back up. I want to show you the flow. As you notice, this flow that comes through, notice that it's not really coming in. You got some stuff up here, but if you look at the brunt of it as it comes across the Pacific, it goes right on past into Panama Canal. Now remember, China is actually making a move down here in Panama. They are trying to take over this canal, which would be not good for us or anybody else for that matter, but they are continuing to build a presence down here. We already know they're in Nicaragua with Russia, Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica. China is really starting to put a big presence in the southern region down here in Central America, mainly with the Silk Road piece, but they also have a lot of military presence down there as they are getting ready to do a big military exercise with Venezuela, Russia. I think Iran is even coming into this one, and it's not good. Again, right down south of us here. All right, so let's talk about the as we looked at the flow from the standpoint. But here's the thing I do want to point out: if you get into Taiwan, this is going to be Shanghai right here, right? Largest, most, I guess, from a port perspective, most advanced port in the world. It's pretty nice. These are ships that are unspecified. Most of these are sitting parked. Thousands and thousands of ships. That means they're out of service, right? For the most part, these guys are just parked and anchored off the shore. But that is a very good leading indicator of the amount of stuff that is not in the supply chain. They're not using them. That's not good. Then you get in here to this little Taiwan Strait area. You notice right off the shore, right there, China is just, they're stacked, backed up, all kinds of boats. Could be anything from military vessels to tankers to cargo. But look at them. It's just unspecified only. I didn't show the other regular stuff that's out there flowing. This is the stuff that's not flowing. And we got to pay very, very close attention to that, because that is a good indicator that this stuff has been taken out of service, that the flow of goods is not what it was prior to the shutdown, the great shutdown. Look at that. It's insane. Absolutely insane. All right. So let's go on over here to this side of it. as we look at what's going on warship-wise, very, very, very busy. Notice the amount. I mean, this is from a NATO. This is everything out in the water. A lot of dots still, not as many arrows. What we're looking for is arrows. But if we get over here, let me back up, and we're just going to really focus in on Taiwan and this general area. Notice there's a little more active in terms, or it's a little more active than what it has been, kind of running in that Taiwan Strait right here. Notice the stack up of naval vessels. This is all Chinese naval vessels pushed into the port here. Now, what we're looking for, when this goes hot, these guys aren't going to be sitting in port more than likely. They're going to be out here pushing. We'll see a ton of arrows when they start to do their invasion. More than likely, they'll start out with the air attack, and then they'll move in from the naval standpoint onto this side of the shore. But again, if you look at the boxes out here, just notice they do have a lot of TFRs here surrounding Taiwan. All right. Okay, let me back up just a tad. Let's look at what's going on out here. Again, we've got a big exercise going on up here in Iceland. This has gone away. We did have some stuff going on here. I think that kind of explains why we had the ships that were going, the heavy lifts coming down from up here, North Finland and Sweden general area. But let's get out here. Notice right here is where that Q4 drone we were just talking about is flying, right, pushing right up against that envelope. This is basically it's not a no-fly zone, but it is a no-fly zone, right? Russia controls all the airspace over this. So I would imagine if you breach that and pushed into that region, Crimea here more than likely is going to light you up with surface-to-air missiles. All right, and then we get down here off the coast of Israel. Just notice this is all military exercises all the way, over to Greece into the heel here, or the toe area of Italy. And then out here in the Adriatic Sea, also big military operation going on, exercises again. All right, navigation warning, unknown military activity observed. Very interesting. Okay. Now, let's just talk a little bit about what is happening in the world relative to war drums, okay? Wars and rumors of wars. This, notice Turkey and Israel to restore full diplomatic relations. This is very important. The reason it is because if you know about Gog Magog, that hook is going to be put into the mouth. Turkey and Israel do not get along, generally speaking. Same thing with Russia and Israel. Same thing with Iran and Israel, as we know. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? But these guys are going to start to form these relationships with Israel, and then they're going to come in and try to invade them because they need the oil and gas that's down there. So, again, eyes on, And Israel, of course, they they keep that enemy close, and so they know what's going on. But they're not fools to it, that's for sure, but we just need to keep an eye on it. Again, data point. And then check this out. The first grain ship to depart Ukraine is offloading in Russia's ally of Syria. Wasn't supposed to go there, and all of a sudden they've got aerial photography that this thing is actually in the port unloading in Syria, bringing grain to the region. That is a very big data point because that means they're not really abiding by the rules that they agreed to. And right out of the gate, they push the grain into Syria, who is definitely not our friend. All right. And then here's another one. This is actually just kind of a write-up in general, but it just kind of puts things into perspective for us. They say that if a U.S.-Russian nuclear war would ensue, that it would actually kill 5 billion people from famine alone. Now, you think about 5 billion people, that's a lot. That's most of the planet. I don't think it's going to go nuclear just because it could go nuclear into the U.S., but over in that general region, I don't, just because that's not what the Bible tells us is going to happen. So, but again, it's a data point, and not a good one, really. But it does go to show you, if something happens in the United States, there's so many people that we provide aid to that if the U.S. gets knocked down and is unable to provide that aid, it would mean global hunger, on an unprecedented scale. Okay. All right. Now here's another one. U.S. and India to hold a military drill close to the tense border with China. As you know, India and China are constantly going at it. Matter of fact, they got to the point about 6 months ago they were throwing rocks and sticks at each other They just went straight into the old barbaric mode. But this is a new exercise that's kind of pumping in. They say we haven't done that in quite some time. As you can see, it is going to be, I guess, from an India perspective, the 7th Battalion, but from the U.S. perspective, paratroopers, we're going to have a 1st Squadron, 4th Cavalry Regiment, 4th Infantry Brigade, and the 25th Infantry Division in that region. Again, wars and rumors of wars. I don't know why we're over there doing that, because it does kind of spread us a little more thin than we already are. But it's just a data point, okay? All right, let's get over here and look at what's going on troop movement wise. Notice we got a lot of Omnis on here. We got this one that just bounced out, came in from Baltimore, Washington. It's a 777-200. That's a big aircraft. And it looks like that from there just did a round robin, came in and went back to Baltimore, Washington. From the Omni perspective now, let's look at what happened. Do we have anything from yesterday? It's been a little bit quiet. We haven't anything since Monday and the weekend. So that's going to be Biggs Army Airfield. Again, that's one we're watching just to kind of give us a baseline as things go hot. This is another one. This is Atlas Air coming inbound from Riga International. I don't know where that is, but it's a 767-300. And then notice that one ends up becoming a camber flight, more than likely. I don't see, well, actually, no, it's a different one. So, yeah, it looks like it turned into a camber flight rolling out. That's going to be troops. And let's see what other ones we got here troop-wise. This one looks to be headed over to Seoul from there. That's a Atlas Air 747-400. It's a long flight. And then another camber flight headed back to Baltimore, Washington. That's probably just a troop rotation. Doubt they're bringing folks back as much as they're bringing folks in. They could be going back empty. And then you've got this one on the docket inbound to, this is Ramstein, by the way, we're looking at Baltimore, Washington. And then this one, Atlas Air, headed back to Hunter Army Airfield, Savannah. That is, that's interesting. That is a location, by the way. We do have an immigrant camp, just FYI. Okay. All right. Now over to the Omnis. Let's see what these boys are up to today. All right. Looks like we got one coming out of Phoenix headed southbound into Brazil. That definitely is going to be immigrant related. And then this one looks to be headed, actually coming inbound. It is, no, actually, I'm sorry, that is departing, headed to Anderson Air Force Base. That's Guam out here. And then this one looks like it's just about to land in out of Phoenix into Hawaii. That's going to be troops more than likely. Okay, on over to away from the Omnis into the camber flights. Everything's over the U.S. right now, but notice we got one leaving Travis, one leaving Rota. That looks to be out here, if I had to guess, down there between Portugal and Spain. And then this one coming out of Germany, that's Ramstein coming back to the United States. Camber flights, again, they don't really show their destinations, although we can kind of see where they're headed because those are troop carriers, okay? Now the Brit troop carriers, very, very active. I almost think that we had a red flag going on because we saw a bunch of aircraft flying into Yuma and that general area. This one's coming out of the U.S., headed back across the drink, and very, very active down in to, this is Turkey here. Looks like they're headed in and out of the Middle East. And again, can't really tell where they're headed because typically with the troops, they don't, again, just like us, they don't show where they're going. But that's a lot. It's a lot of troop movers right there, folks. A lot. All right, over to the Ruskies. All right, we had one on the board. He dropped off, but I did catch it. Hopefully it'll show as we get through the whiteout here. Yeah, it looks like it took off out of Sochi back to Moscow. They've been doing a lot of stuff here in Sochi. This is actually a Formula One track for those that follow Formula One racing. But that is a pretty nice little area, and looks like they've been coming in and out of this regularly, in and out of Moscow. I don't know if they've got talks going on or what the deal was, but that is just in that little corner there of Russia. And then over here to Guantanamo Bay. So let's talk about this a little, as I am kind of a little concerned. I'm not going to lie. Typically when we find out that somebody has gone to the spa or something, event has taken place, we'll see the flights, and then there'll be a press release that comes out about who it was. or who it potentially was. You never have 100% confirmation, but I do find this one interesting, especially with all the stuff going on right now with Trump. It's a little concerning, but just notice we do have a couple of aircraft that are not the normals. These two right here are out of sequence. This N82ML is one that is, you can see it, it's a Tuesday, Friday flight, okay? That's normal. That's one that just kind of popped into the rotation. We've seen the Maxwell Bird go into the rotation and a lot of other aircraft. We've been seeing a lot more of the Learjets and the Cessnas. And when I say Cessnas, I mean nice Cessnas popping in and out. This is very active. This is a small aircraft. Again, a small one. That one's small. That's going to be your Graybirds, Phoenix Air. We already know that's an agency bird. This here, another small one, small one. So you can see about 60-75% of that board right now are the little small operator type aircraft. Now, what am I talking about? When we talk about the C550 Citation 2, it's a Cessna, but this ain't your mama Cessna. Check this out. This is a little 7-seater, cruise speed 350 knots. It's considered a light jet in that range, but this is what you're looking at. That is a high dollar, very nice, almost like a little fighter jet. These things are beautiful aircraft, and if you look at the interior on it, yeah, that'd be a high roller, right? But you can also notice that if you had to put a little crew of operators on there, you could certainly throw a couple man crew of operators, a couple HVTs very easily into this. But you could also put, a lawyer or somebody you may need at the spa to represent somebody. But there, again, there's the aircraft. Again, very nice. And the rates per flight hour are very, very expensive. So this is not something that, your normal people like us rent. Okay, I think running anywhere from $3,500 up to $7,500 per flight hour. Okay, so if you look at just the flight running from Lauderdale to there and back, that could run you upwards of $14,000 down to about $7K. Okay, minimum $7K. So you can imagine what it's like if they're flying all the way up to DC or anywhere else. A very expensive flight. Okay, now let's talk Gestapo for a minute. This is going to be N721AL. This is going to be your DOJ FBI birds. Just to show you, they were in Lexington, Kentucky, and they have since gone back to Washington, D.C. Landed about 22 hours ago. More than likely, they dropped a team off here. So if you're in that general region, just a heads up. All right, and then let's go over here to the live arrows so we can watch our immigrant machine as these boys, very, very active. Look at the amount of flights headed down into South and Central America. But then also notice you got quite a few headed out of this general area. That one looks like, let me see if that was, that's Concord. I wanted to say, started to say the Triad, but that's not Greensboro area. That's actually Concord. Headed to Salt Lake City. Not a usual flight. And then let's see what else we got on here. Alexandria down to El Salvador. That's somebody getting exfilled out of the country. That's what you want to see. Phoenix to Alexandria. That's another one. Somebody headed to that holding facility. But let me see here. These Miami to Cincinnati. That one's a little concerning. And then this one here headed down to Havana and back. So it's kind of starting to see some regular stuff going back and forth. You hope they're exporting people, but I got to tell you, I don't have the warm and fuzzy. And I will tell you, Customs and Border Patrol has yet to give me an official response back. So that tells you probably everything we need to know. Okay. All right. Now over to, oh man, I missed my opportunity. I meant to intro into the sniffer and I blew it, but now over to the sniffer. So this one actually took off. Notice it's headed up here near, let's see, Farmingdale, New Jersey, but it came out of Camp Springs. That's the second time this thing has run that route, and it just landed 40 minutes ago. But again, this is, notice the deviation in altitude. Either it's really bumpy right here because that was a 100-foot deviation back and forth. That would be pretty choppy for a helicopter. But notice the down spike, down to about 100 foot. Up to about 400 feet and then down again. That's taking different air quality samples as it left here in the Brown Zone or Senior Living Center up to that region. So we'll keep an eye on it, see where it goes. But just, again, another data point. All right. So, okay. Now, listen, I had an opportunity to talk to somebody when I was out in California who actually shares this with their students. And she had asked me if I would to put the message of salvation at the end of this one. And I'm doing this for her, but this could fit anybody out there. So if you're watching the world around us go to hell in a handbasket, and you're thinking, man, you know what? It is time for me to get right with the Lord. It's as simple as ABC. A, admit that you're a sinner. Romans 3:23, for we all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. B, believe that Jesus Christ is Lord and died for your sins. Acts 16:31 tells us, believe in the Lord Jesus and you will be saved, period. And of course, C, call upon his name and confess your sins. 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. Now, that sounds very simple, but it is just that simple, all right? The battle has already been fought for you and I. All you got to do is believe in him, confess those sins, and just repent. Walk away from that sinful nature, and you are as golden as anybody can be, all right? And when he says he casts away those sins, he does as far as east is from west. You may not forgive yourself, but he has forgiven you. All you got to do is ask, all right? Okay, listen, that's going to be it. For those in the chat, I'll see you over there in the Q&A here in just a minute. That's going to do it for SITREP today. You guys be safe out there. Keep that powder dry, stay frosty, and always let's go, Brandon. God bless. Monkey out. Check out the latest gear and products at monkeyworksus.com.